Welcome to another episode of Euphoric, the podcast, and we are in our Dry January series. So be sure to go back to last week's episode. It has such gold nuggets in it, all about the mindset shifts you need to have a really successful month. And after years of helping people take breaks from alcohol and lose their desire really to drink in the first place, these are the mindset shifts that I wish I had when I was first going on my alcohol-free journey. And to be honest, some of them are a little controversial. So see what maybe the advice that you haven't heard before that will really make huge breakthroughs as you're going through this month. And if you are on your first dry January, your third dry January, or you're already alcohol free and you're just like rallying everyone right now, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. And I am going to go over today those weird side effects that no one really talks about when you take a break from alcohol. And so, my work, and especially my book, Euphoric, it is called Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol, Gain a Happier, More Confident You. I cover like 1,001 benefits that happen when you go alcohol free. And I totally geek out on this stuff. I love the soulful benefits. Like there's a lot of intangible things that happen. There is so much more confidence that you get from going alcohol free. Courage, intuition really hits you. Your creativity really goes up. All of these kinds of things. But there's also like the science, right? There's the biology. Your body's going to go through massive, massive changes. I was just reminiscing the other day because I used to drink so much hibiscus tea. And I remember the reason why was because every time I went to the doctor or got my blood pressure tested, it was always above 120/80. Like I had high blood pressure, even pre-hypertension. And so that scared me, right? And so I was like reading, well, how do you lower blood pressure? And I would do those like weird things that try to lower it other than just cut out alcohol. So I read that hibiscus tea lowers it. And I think that's a great practice to drink that tea. But basically I would just buy these huge bags of like bulk hibiscus flowers from Sprouts or some, Mexican market. And I just remember drinking so much of this stuff and it would like fall down when I'd open a cupboard and just this hibiscus tea would come out and fall down. It was just like a mess, like all these random bags of like dried up flowers. And it was just so silly because obviously consciously I was trying to be healthier, but I didn't really know that like instead of doing all these like wraparound things to try to improve my health, if I just would have cut out alcohol, it would have just lowered. In fact, it's proven that within just a 2-week break from alcohol, your blood pressure will go down. Why? Because alcohol literally makes your heart beat faster. It literally overexerts itself and makes it have to pump harder and creates a lot of inflammation. And just within 2 weeks, it's proven that blood pressure goes down. Now, ever since I've gone alcohol free, my blood pressure has never gone over 120/80. And it was just so funny how I was doing everything possible to try to lower it instead of just cutting out the alcohol. So the changes that you'll see on a biological level are incredible. In fact, I just did a post on it on my Instagram, so go check it out. I think I list 7 different changes that happen between different time frames, like 1 week, 2 week, 4 weeks, 6 months, like whatever. But it's insane. It's insane how powerful the body is to heal. It's insane how you can, I've had clients get off medication, for blood pressure, for cholesterol. You're improving your liver enzymes, you're improving your brain, and the neurotransmitters are rebalancing. Like the amount of GABA, serotonin, and dopamine that eventually rebalance to higher levels that actually make you feel happier is insane when you take a break from alcohol versus what drinking does to it, because drinking is just lowering those and then creating more stress hormones in your brain. So if you want to geek out on this stuff, I do recommend you grab my book, Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol, Gain a Happier, More Confident You. It'll be in the show notes below. It's usually like $13 on Amazon, and sometimes in January, it gets as low as like 7 or 8. So snag yourself a copy so you can be sure to have that guide. And my whole life's work is really about all the incredible benefits that happen when you go alcohol free. Now here's the caveat though, is some of the benefits take some time. So if this is your first dry January, or maybe you had like a very wet December and you're coming back for dry January, it can take your body a while to heal and really rebalance itself and figure out this new equilibrium. And so I wanted to dedicate this podcast episode to some of those weird side effects that we don't really talk about so much that are going on in your body. Okay, first thing up. Sugar cravings. So most people who are doing dry January are taking a break from alcohol or going alcohol free. there is at least some percentage or proportion of your intuition that's doing it from a health conscious level. You know what I mean? Like, we can understand at that soul level that alcohol is not serving our health. And it's weird because you have to be really intuitive, and there's so much propaganda out there that makes you think that a glass of red wine is good for you and good for your heart, and drinking moderately is fine and healthy, and it's all bunk. It is literally all bunk. They have debunked every single one of those studies, and they have just proved time and time again that there's literally no safe amount of alcohol. But it is new, and it's only in the last like 5 or so years that the science is really showing that. And so a lot of people have these misconceived recognitions that alcohol is somehow good for you, or moderation is good for you, or drinking red wine is good for you. None of it's the case, right? And I think we all know, like, when you drink and you wake up the next day, your body feels so much rougher than if you would ingest almost anything else, right? Like, I am to the point where my body's really sensitive. It's sensitive to caffeine and sugar and processed foods and stuff like that, but nothing is gonna throw me like under and make me feel like complete shit like alcohol, even just one glass. So I think we all know intuitively it's not serving our health. And the more you learn and understand, whether you're worried about your liver or cancer risk or heart disease down the line, or, you know, aerobic fitness, or just all the things that alcohol can mess with, I think there is always a part of us, even if we have a gazillion other reasons of why we want to minimize or go alcohol free in the first place, health is always usually one of those, okay? So then you get these sugar cravings. And all of a sudden you're cutting out alcohol. Maybe you're 7 days into dry January. Maybe you're listening to this episode further on, and you know, you're whatever days, and you just cannot, like, you need sugar. You just need to have sugar. And I worked with so many women, especially health conscious women, that this is a really at odds, because the whole reason why they're trying to go alcohol free is to get healthier. So like, what am I supposed to do? Just eat pounds of sugar now, right? So it's always this like mental battle that happens. So let's first get into the biology of like what's going on in your body, why this is actually happening. And then let me give you some of my best tips on just how to actually deal with this situation. Okay, so when you think of, you know, the sugar cravings, first of all, a lot of people think that there's like no sugar in alcohol because it's not listed on the ingredients or in the like caloric intake. And it's completely bunk, right? Like, first of all, most alcohol doesn't even have to have like the calories and all that stuff listed on it. It's kind of crazy how there's a loophole for that. But sugar and alcohol are so intertwined because alcohol is literally made out of sugar. Like, when they choose different fruits and vegetables or products to make alcohol out of, it is because of the sugar content that they're making it from, right? So like grapes, you're making alcohol out of the sugar that is produced in grapes. And if you just eat grapes compared to like a blueberry or a green apple, you're gonna be able to notice a grape is way sweeter than any of those things. Okay, why do they make vodka out of beets and potatoes? It is because of that high sugar and high starch content. Think of rum. Rum is made out of sugar cane, right? Literally, how you make alcohol is take a fruity, sugary liquid, allow it to ferment, allow the yeast to cannibalize on that sugar, and then that's what creates the alcohol itself. So when you're taking away alcohol, your body is now starved for that hit of sugar that it was used to getting. And obviously it's in an altered form. It's not quite sugar anymore when it's alcohol, obviously, right? It's not the same thing, but just think about it from that like craving and that satisfaction point of view. Your body was used to getting that sugar every single day in at least that format. And now you're just taking that away from it, right? And also there's like the blood sugar dysregulation that can happen. Plus, you know, alcohol and sugar are really similar in how they release dopamine in your mind as well. So it often becomes this thing where we just get this really heavy sweet tooth when we go alcohol free. Now, I definitely went through this. I felt like a cookie monster. I was just like, I remember one time trying to fight it. It was, I think, maybe like my 3rd or 4th week without alcohol. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna eat sugar tonight. I'm not gonna do it. And it was the biggest battle. I was like really, really struggling. And this, I would just say, is not the time to also try to minimize your sugar. Now, I know that can sound kind of off-putting, especially again, if you're health conscious and you're trying to make a lot of different healthy changes for maybe the new year and stuff like that. But trust me, it's not the time right now. I would really just let yourself be on this one, because trying to not drink alcohol and not eat sugar at the same time is doing a number on so much of like the willpower and deprivation pathways that you have in your brain. Now, obviously, if you don't want to completely become a cookie monster at this time of your life, you can try healthier alternatives. So some of the things that I've found for that were helpful for me or for my clients doing this work is dried fruit, for example. Like dried mango is really good. They even have freeze-dried fruits, like especially at Trader Joe's, they do freeze-dried berries. They're really not sweet because there's literally no sugar in it. But some, anything like a dried fruit can be really helpful. You want to probably, if you're doing this for the health conscious reason, you probably want to find the dried fruit that doesn't have any extra sugar added on top of that. If you're just like, I don't care, I just want to be a little healthier, that is a good alternative. I also found that gummy vitamins really help. You know, when you can get gummy vitamins, obviously there's some that are lower quality, some that are higher quality, but they're pretty popular nowadays to find some kind of supplement that you're already taking, but in a gummy format. If like I knew that I could have like 4 fruit snacks at the end of the day, you know, when I was going through my first break from alcohol, I think it would be so much easier. So you can always switch some of your vitamins or your supplements to a gummy format and then have that little thing. Some gummies are actually made with sugar, but very, very minimal. And some are using like different alternatives like monk fruit or stevia or something like that. Other alternatives, so I'll be honest with you guys, I like dessert. You know, like there's some things that I really found I can't eat anymore the healthier I get and the more optimized my body gets. It's really hard for me to eat like completely processed junk sugar like a Snickers or Twix and not feel the effects of that stuff. But I love like homemade dessert. I love going to a cookie shop that makes the cookies fresh every day and getting cookies. You know, like especially if I eat out somewhere like for a big celebratory dinner, I love going to pick up a dessert after that. But to be honest, I'm on this fertility cleanse right now, and I think it's been about 3 to 4 weeks now that I haven't had any sugar and not even any sweet fruit either. So I'm only eating like berries and green apples when applicable. So it's been really interesting, and usually this would be quite hard for me, but I think I've gotten just so optimized in my body and my lifestyle that it's not really that big of a deal. But some of the things that I've had that literally have 0 sugar in it that are allowed for me in my little fertility cleanse that could be helpful for you is like a green apple, for example, with almond butter. So good, right? Especially if you're still a little hungry after dinner and you want a little bit more satiating food, like almond butter with fruit is really good like that way. The gummy vitamins too, like I'm not having the ones with sugar, but the ones with like a little monk fruit, and just having like one can often be just enough for me. Another alternative is a smoothie. So instead of making a smoothie that is like something that you drink really quickly, I'm making mine right now with only berries, like spinach, and then like some protein powders or whatnot. And then I'm pouring it into a bowl. And so then, and when it's in the bowl, then we top it with like coconut shreds, slivered almonds, maybe some other dried, freeze-dried like strawberries and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit more like swirls of nut butters and stuff like that. And eating it like a dessert that way, like a bowl, is often feels more like dessert than drinking a smoothie. So those are some ideas I'm doing. I even the other day did like a faux cereal where I poured like blueberries, slivered almonds, and coconut shreds with coconut milk and just ate it like cereal. You know what I mean? And again, there's no sugar in any of that except for obviously a little bit in maybe the blueberries. But it was a much healthier way to kind of quell that craving for something like a cereal, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of different alternatives you can do, but honestly, I wouldn't even try to go that hardcore on the I have to be so healthy and not eat any sugar right now. Just have the sugar. You're already having it when you're drinking. And the thing is that once you get used to not drinking longer, once you take your break and extend it and really normalize not drinking, like further down the line, then you can work on the sugar. Then you can work on the dessert fix. You know what I mean? But I would never suggest someone try to work on both at the same time. It's just too much willpower is going to be involved. Something's going to break. Like you don't want to really deprive yourself from anything else right now. And I don't think of, not drinking alcohol as deprivation, but if you're so used to it for so long, obviously there's that transition period that happens before your mindset does the subconscious work, which I always really recommend doing. We teach this in all of my programs, Dry Boot Camp, the club, pick up my book, and you can check it out. And that's what's actually going to naturally shift your desire away from drinking in the first place. Okay, so if you have sugar cravings, just eat the gummies. Just eat whatever you want at this point. It's usually not going to last, like the craziness of it won't last forever, and you can make that change later on if you want to. All right, the next weird effect of dry January. is everyone talks about how much better you sleep without alcohol, and it's so true. Like, my sleep is so different. It's such a night and day. I remember, again, I'm going to go so specific with this episode. I remember when I would not even, okay, first, obviously, there's the nights you drink, and I would have to wake up to pee. I would, wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., like with all the stress hormones racing through my body, just the fragmented sleep and all that kind of stuff. But even on the nights I didn't drink, but I still was drinking that week, you know what I mean? Because I was a weekly drinker, I still had the poorer sleep. It wasn't as good as it is today by any means, right? So I can totally see a night and day difference. And it's so funny. I remember, especially the nights I drank, I would have to get up and pee. And even the nights I didn't drink, I think I would have to get up and pee often. And I remember telling my mom about it. And she was like, oh, there's these like Chinese herbs or bamboo shreds or whatever you could try in a tea. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, Mom. This is just how I am. This is just how my body is. Like, I almost like didn't believe her that it could be fixed or changed. I was like, that's just how I am. It's always been like this. And then I go alcohol free and I stop getting up in the middle of the night to pee. Like, completely. You know what I mean? It's just so funny. It was nothing to do with how I am or how my body was or anything like that, you know? And I'm that type of person who, like, when I leave the house for a road trip, I feel like I have to pee within the first, like, hour or 30 minutes. But it's usually because, like, I drink a lot of breakfast, beverages and stuff like that. So, but it's just so funny. I, like, totally thought that's just who I am. And no, it totally changed. And my sleep, like, really went into much deeper. My deep sleep and my REM sleep went much higher. When you're drinking, alcohol robs your REM sleep so badly. When you're normally supposed to have like 5 to 6 cycles a night, and when you're drinking, it goes down to even like 1 or 2. So, your body's always going to be sleep deprived if there's alcohol involved. Even if you're just having 1 glass and you're going to bed on time and stuff like that, it's always going to mess up your sleep. Your body also has to detox the alcohol at the same time. So I talk about this a lot on my podcast. I'm going to wrap it up here. But you're expecting that as soon as you stop drinking, and then the sleep should get better. And a lot of people sometimes find that it gets worse. So this is one of those weird effects that it kind of gets worse before it gets better. It obviously totally depends on who you are, like what other sleep hygiene habits you have, how much you're drinking before, all the different stuff, right? But for some people who find that their sleep gets worse before it eventually gets better, what is going on is that your body works on your circadian rhythm, right? Your body knows it's time to wake up at a certain time. Your body knows it's time to go to sleep at a certain time. And so when you drink alcohol, your body gets used to fragmented sleep. And it gets used to because there's this huge stress hormone response that often hits when the depressive side of alcohol wears off. It's usually about 5 hours, which means that most people get this hit of cortisol and adrenaline around 3 or 4 a.m. Now, you know this, right? Whenever you've woken up in the middle of the night and you're like, and you're then like shaming and blaming yourself and feeling super fragmented and frustrated and just like everything that could possibly be wrong with the world is wrong at that moment, right? You know that feeling. So your body got used to that. Your body gets used to that disruption in your circadian rhythm. So say you stopped drinking, but your body was used to the 3 or 4 a.m. wake-up calls, and maybe even you weren't consciously waking up, maybe your body was just like having much lighter sleep then, that still is going to be in effect. Because let's say, for example, you were working a night shift for years and then you just stopped, your body would still have a really long transition time to get used to the new cycle because it was so used to the circadian rhythm being the way it was, right? That's one reason. Another reason is that those stress hormones that I was just telling you about, it takes much longer for the body to completely stop producing those after the effect of alcohol than actually the detoxing of the alcohol itself. So it depends, again, who you are, how much you drink, all that kind of stuff. But your body will can finish detoxing alcohol between 2 days to even 7 days after you last drank. And again, just depending on a lot of different factors. And depending on kind of what you mean, because it's not just the ethanol, it's also the byproducts that we're talking about here. But then when it comes to the stress hormones that your body releases in response to the alcohol, that takes your body a much longer to filter through. So you could still be releasing those stress hormones or have that residual stress hormone circulating in your body for maybe even 2 to 3 weeks after you last drank. So it's a huge transition period. It's super normal to not always have the best sleep right when you stop drinking. Your circadian rhythm is messed up. Stress hormones could still be circulating in your body. Just give it more time. Now, you also want to pay attention to your sleep hygiene. So I've had an episode, go be sure, we're going to link it in the show notes, but it's a whole episode on how to sleep like a baby, some of my top sleep hygiene tips. Because like there's times where I've like worked with clients and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep anymore because, I'm not drinking now or whatever. And a lot of people think that alcohol helps them fall asleep. It doesn't. It truly doesn't. It sedates you into sleep. And they found that when they sedates you to sleep, your brain waves are closer to what you would be in a coma versus what you actually need when you're sleeping. So it's not really helping. It's just like, it's making you sedate fall asleep instead of naturally fall asleep. So I would go to that sleep hygiene episode. But I remember working with clients before and they're like, I can't sleep. And then I just asked about some of their habits, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, are you on screens like right before bed? Are you doing something that excites you right before bed? Are you getting light in the morning? Are you, maybe trying magnesium supplement? Like there's just so much you could do. I think that when it comes to sleep hygiene, there's like levers that we can pull that go well beyond just the basics. For example, in that episode, I go all into how you can change most of your lamps and lights to be red light instead of blue light. Like all of this stuff really makes a huge difference. Watching the sunset, watching the sunrise, all of it does. But just know that it is normal to not always have the best sleep once you remove alcohol for a few weeks. And I think like what I've found with a lot of the clients like that I've worked with in the past and just all the people I've heard from in the years, I think it takes around 3 weeks or so to really rebalance. Again, it's really going to depend on your habits, what you're up to, how much you used to drink, all that kind of stuff. But give it just some time and really lean into the sleep hygiene. I would also recommend just going to bed earlier, especially if you're so used to drinking in the evening, like just go to bed earlier, take a bath, go to bed earlier. You're going to start to see the effects like really ramp up. And then it's like, then you enter in this period where it's just like, oh my God, this is like the best sleep ever. What was I missing this whole time? And a huge reason why often you don't want to go back to drinking, or maybe you do, and then what prompts you to go back into not drinking is the sleep. It's like anytime you drink, you're going to have the shittiest sleep and you're going to wake up feeling super foggy. And every time you don't drink, it's so much better, right? So it's a huge reason to stay with this lifestyle. All right, the next one that I'm going to talk about today about a weird effect is boredom. Now, I don't know about you, but you go your first weekend or dinner or whatever it is without drinking when you're used to drinking, and it's almost like, what do I do with my hands? And it is a really normal thing that happens, is that obviously, even if you're like, I just drink 1 glass a night, it's not that big of a thing, or I just drink on the weekend, you don't think logically that you're spending a lot of time drinking, but then all of a sudden, when you're not doing it during dry January or, an extended break, you have a lot more time. And it's almost like having to ask yourself, how do I actually want to fill this time? Like what actually is enjoyable for me? Because maybe before it was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna plop on the couch, open some wine and watch some Netflix. And now it's like, well, we're not really doing that. Like obviously you can still watch TV, but I think there's like part of you that is kind of hungry for more. It's called the boredom crisis, right? And I think this is actually a really cool opportunity. Basically, think of it this way. When you were a child, you created fun all the time. You were this active agent creating fun in your life. You probably climbed trees. You might have put on plays. You went rollerblading. You went ice skating. You rode your bike. You knocked on your neighbor's door and invited them to play make-believe with you. Like as kids, especially those of us who grew up before the digital age, we created our own fun all the time and we figured out what was enjoyable and fun for us. And then what happens as we become adults is like, especially when alcohol comes into the picture, and obviously alcohol is so tied to our idea of fun when we start drinking as teenagers and young adults and college and parties and stuff like that. And, the reward after work and the party I get to go to with my friends this weekend, like whatever it is, it gets so ingrained in our brain as this is fun. And especially when you have, stressful day, stressful life, you got to take care of a lot of people, got to take care of kids. Wine often comes to be that stand-in for the reward in your day, the me time that you finally get. And this is really fascinating because if you think about that creative energy that you had when you were younger, when you had to create your own fun, what happens to us as adults is we become these passive zombies. We literally don't create any fun anymore when we're using alcohol for fun. We literally just sit there, drink a drink, and then wait for the fireworks to go off in our brain. And it's kind of sad if you think about it. It's really dystopian even. And, one of my favorite writers, Aldous Huxley, it's what my dog is named after, or who my dog is named after, Huxley. Now I can't even say that name and think of it seriously. It just sounds like a dog, like Huxley. But anyway, his most famous book, Brave New World, is this dystopian book about how everyone's living in a supposedly utopian society, but to keep everyone happy, they're taking this pill called Soma, and it keeps them like cheery, but they never actually feel their feelings or get in touch with their emotional intelligence. And that like person who's witnessing this is like, this is fucked up, right? Like this isn't a utopia. This is a, dystopian world. And it's kind of like the same thing is happening with alcohol. Like adults don't even know what's fun for them anymore. Adults don't even know what brings them joy. And I mean like organic joy, right? Not just sit down and have fireworks go off in my brain because I drank this drink. You know what I mean? Like that's not real. And to really like pull the point home, think of the science experiment where let's just say we took little electrical nodes and we put it on a rat's brain. And these electrical nodes were able to stimulate the pleasure center in the rat's brain. And you put the lever in front of the rat and you let the rat push the lever and it, gets the stimulus and the pleasure center goes off. And it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. What's going to happen is the rat's going to sit there just pressing the lever over and over and over again and getting this like electrical stimulation in their pleasure center. Can we really call that fun? Is that fun for the rat? Is that true pleasure, or is that kind of sick and twisted, right? And, like, what does a rat really find fun? Like, they should be doing mazes. They should be exploring for cheese. They should be running on wheels, like all the things that were their sensory and part of their environment and creative and using their brain and all these kinds of things. And so obviously in this example, it can be really clear to see, no, it's not fun. That is fake fun. That's fake dopamine. Fake dopamine, right? So as you are going longer on your alcohol-free break or dry January, you too have to figure out what's organic joy for you, what is actually fun for you. And a lot of adults don't know the answer to that question anymore, right? They lost that fun from their were kids. Alcohol and adulthood came in as the stand-in. That becomes the way you relax, reward yourself, socialize, all these things that we don't know what's really fun for us. And so this is this moment of exploration that you have in front of you. They say that Albert Einstein thought that boredom was so crucial to his creativity because it was only when he was bored that his mind actually was able to innovate and give him all of these ideas and inventions. And it's like that for a lot of creators and a lot of inventors and a lot of innovators. Is like you have to feel bored sometimes to have the space to think and create. So here's another example. I really like classical music, and I especially like it in the winter time. It's this weird thing where I just don't want this like input of like really loud music and like crazy energy. I like that music like in the summer, but in the winter, I just put on my classical music station and I just like to like really zone out and chill out to classical music. And I really like going to classical music concerts too. And I find that, I also like ballets. I danced ballet for a very long time in my life. I love seeing ballets. I like seeing, musicals and different shows. And if I was to rate all the shows on a level of like, what's the most fun to see and what's the like least fun to see, the classical music would probably be towards the bottom, right? Because there's not that much going on. You're just watching someone play an instrument and listening to the music. But the reason why I love it so much is that when I'm there at a concert, I just sit there and I'm not on my phone. And I'm not distracted by a ton of things that are going on the stage. I am able to be bored in a really good way, because then my brain starts thinking and imagining and creating these things, this state that I would getting into that I would never be able to get into had I been sitting there with my phone, or had I been sitting there distracted, or had I been sitting there doing all this other stuff. I love the classical music concert for that. That is what going alcohol-free is like for your brain. You are sitting there bored, but it's actually finally the time for your creative innovator energy to come out. And so you get to explore and answer the question for yourself, what is really fun for me? And so you're going to have to experiment. And there's different things you can do. I have a free guide on my website called 50 Things to Do Instead of Drinking. So go check that out if you want some ideas. But you're going to have to experiment. There's probably some things that you're going to want to do that are more like homely and, low energy. So like maybe you're bored after work, but you don't like want to go out and do stuff, and I found that my clients and other people love like adult coloring, for example. Some people get into knitting. Some people get into even just like organizing their house, like scrapbooking, doing these projects that have been sitting there forever that you've always wanted to do and stuff like that. And then like when it is time to go out, you also want to explore the world in a totally different way, right? You want to go to the botanical gardens. You want to go to the museum. You want to go try things you've never tried before. This is where the tango lessons, this is where like ballroom dancing comes in, Zumba classes, writers workshops, business workshops, like whatever it is, all those things that you would want to do one day in your life is like now you have this agency to actually go do that. Maybe you've always wanted to play a musical instrument. This is when you learn. Maybe you've always wanted to learn another language. This is when you do it. Maybe you have always wanted to just like try cooking new foods. Like there's just so much to experiment and experience. And so I do recommend you get that guide. It's going to have a lot of different ideas for you. But when I was going through this phase, and I talk about it a lot in my book, so you can read about it there too. When I was going through this phase, I did a lot of different stuff. And I started to really recognize what was fun for me. And I found that I loved writing, I loved learning, and I loved challenging myself. I was synthesizing a lot of information at that time too. And this is kind of like the birth of my business. And I think that's why so many people who go alcohol free end up launching their own businesses. It's just such a rife time when you are able to really do something like start a project that challenges you. You have to learn a bunch of stuff. You have to like learn how to do websites and how to, put your advice out there or whatever it is that is your business is about. Like it's a huge learning curve. And I think that's what's so enticing about going alcohol free is it changes you into the type of person who doesn't like poo-paw on doing work or doing things that stimulate and challenge you. Now you're up for it. Because now not only is that the source of fun for you, and just remember, dopamine, a lot of people think it is just a happiness neurotransmitter. It's not. Dopamine is actually given to us when we do something challenging. And so dopamine is one of the main neurotransmitters that alcohol is, releasing as well, but it's the fake dopamine, right? It's not real. Your receptors eventually shrink. It's all like too much and overflooding your brain. And it doesn't feel, it's just like heroin and cocaine, okay, right? It's not the real thing. But what you're really looking for isn't just pleasure in that moment, which is obviously amazing. And I think we should all be finding more pleasure in our lives, but it's actually something that challenges you and stimulates you. When you do something hard or you do something you've never done before and you're like, whoa, I actually did that. That's what you're looking for when your body and brain want dopamine. And so I would see the boredom instead of as a challenge or like, what do I do with my hands or anything like that? It's an invitation to figure out what really makes you happy and what really brings you joy. Now, these are just some of the 3, different kind of weird effects you can experience on dry January. There might be so many more, and there's also so many of the benefits and the way that you can shift your mind to start seeing and learning and growing from this process. I wouldn't do it alone. I really do recommend, we have one more day, I believe, until Dry Bootcamp starts. Get inside. Dry Bootcamp is going to guide you through all the processes of going alcohol free during a 20-day period as you meet your new emotional needs in new ways. So I kind of just talked about one of them. It's like your need to feel excited and stimulated and challenged and like excited and stuff is going on. This is a beautiful way that you can meet it by actually challenging and stimulating yourself, like different rituals that you can use to really feel alive. There's also all the ways that you are going to meet your emotional needs around like really calming yourself down and soothing yourself and stuff like that, and everything that's to do with socializing. So we cover all of that in Dry Bootcamp. There are daily lessons you get. You have weekly sessions. So we have trainings with me. We have coaching calls where you can come in and like ask your question and be like, hey, my digestion maybe isn't the best right now, or all the random stuff that could happen, or just like, hey, my husband isn't doing this with me and he's drinking every day and it's like really weird. Like come in and actually get support. We have an incredible community as well. And we've usually run Dry Bootcamp for a few $100s. It's only $55 to join this time. It's like literally less than, 2 drinks at a like, swanky bar. Like come in, get yourself supported for the whole month. There's also an option to add my book to your Dry Bootcamp experience and a set of really hipster mocktails. They're some of my favorite mocktails. They really help they have adaptogens and nootropics in them that really help calm you down and get you ready to like feel really relaxed at night. So it's the perfect like swap. They're super tasty too. It's like this like lavender salt, like, oh my gosh, I just love it. So there is an option if you want. You can just try boot camp for $55, or you can get the add-on where you get my book and the mocktails sent to you, delivered to your door. You don't have to worry about anything. So that is an option. I think it's like $97 right now. And if you want to, you can also get private coaching. So if you want someone to like be able to, meet with you every week and stuff like that and have a few calls, you can also get the VIP option with the private coaching if you'd like. So I would love to see you there. We start tomorrow, January 8th. It's going to be such an incredible experience. It's like everyone's just coming together to do the same thing, whether it's your first dry January, your third dry January, December was really wet, you had a whole year alcohol free, but then you started drinking again. Like, it doesn't matter the backstory, come join us. Or maybe you just want to like feel really, really motivated. Maybe in your 4-month alcohol free right now, but you're like, yeah, I want to like really work on my emotional needs. I don't want to keep, feeling deprived if I don't drink, or the FOMO or whatever. You're going to love Dry Boot Camp. I would love to meet you there. It's such a cool experience. And I hope this episode really helped kind of normalize some of these effects. They're weird, but they're normal. Everybody goes through them. And honestly, they're just temporal. Like, that's going to pass and you're going to feel all of those amazing benefits much, much sooner than you think. Stay tuned. We have more Dry January series on the podcast coming up. So you're going to want to keep tuning in every week. Be sure you're subscribed to the podcast as well. That's how I remember when there's like new podcasts of the people that I love to listen to. So you can just hit that subscribe button. And go check out Dry Boot Camp. We'd love to see you there. Also, my book is really, really helpful, and it's going to list so many of the different things that I've talked about today, so much of the science behind it as well, and some of the resources you can do to start changing the subconscious desires for alcohol. So I hope this episode was helpful. Happy Dry January to you, and we'll see you next week.